introduced to some church members um, that are now a part of my family, really. And my whole life, I grew up in the church and knowing about this loving God. I was a part of the activities our church had for us, like adventures and pathfinders, and it was nice, and I felt so welcomed, even though we weren't from America. And I felt like as a little girl, I had this real connection with God, and I loved God so much. I wanted to be baptized as soon as possible because my grandma, she was baptized. She went to Campion, she graduated there, then she moved on to Union, and she graduated at Union, and she got baptized when she was 12. So she's like this really sweet Christian grandma, and she always wants the best for like me and my sisters. And my mom, she is a really hard worker. She didn't grow up with, she only grew up with a mom, a dad. Her mom passed away when she was young, and she's worked all her life. And dad was someone who gave so much love to me and my sisters, and he was just a very affectionate father. And as life went on, my dad started drifting away from the church, and he started drinking more, and he soon became an alcoholic. And every day it started becoming constant, where he was drinking and bringing his friends over, and it was scary because there was a lot of drunk men in the house, and yeah. Mhm. And because of that, my mom and dad fought so much, and my they'd argue so much, especially at night when it was quiet and sleeping, so you could hear them like throughout all the rooms, and it was scary. And my mom wanted my dad to stop drinking and to like actually put us first instead of his habits. And my dad would be mad because all my dad wanted was to hear my mom tell him that she loved him. And it's hard for my mom to be like an affectionate person. The way she shows her love is different from what it is, because she wasn't shown that love, so she doesn't know how to express that caring motherly love. But she still does her best. I wanted them to stay together so bad, and I prayed to God to fix it, just for them to stop fighting and for them to be together and to love each other. When my parents had split, my whole world came crashing down. I was at my lowest, begging God to fix me or my parents and to save me, and nothing happened. And it hurt because I felt like I was alone. I felt like I needed someone, and I needed God, and He didn't answer me, and He left me is how I felt. And so that's when I decided that I was done with this God, and I was gonna put myself first, and I was gonna pick myself up, and that I didn't need a God that didn't love me. So I was still young. I was still told to go to church, and I went, but it wasn't for the right reasons. I only went for my friends, and I didn't care about the sermon or the talk that they had, and I was drifting from the church. And when I started drifting away from the church, it made me realize that the church was very judgmental, and I love them as individuals, but I just felt like they didn't care that much about like what I needed in my like spiritual life. And because I was so hurt, I was also alone. I didn't trust anyone, and I was hurting, and that made me hurt people around me, people that I actually cared about. And not only was I hurting, I was mad, and I lashed out, and I was very short-tempered. I got mad easily, and it ruined a lot of my friendships and relationships. But it made me realize that I was mad at God the most because it felt like He hurt me. At the beginning of this year, Carlos had a talk with the girls' dorm, and he talked about peace. And when he talked about peace, everything that he said, it felt like it was everything I needed to hear and everything I wanted in my life. So afterwards, I went and talked with some of my friends about how I wanted that peace. I needed that peace. It was something that was better for me. And ever since that night, I knew that God was reaching out to me, but I was too scared to trust Him again, to put my faith into Him if He was just going to leave me again. And so I went on with my life, and over the summer, it was like in the back of my head, and I knew He was calling out to me, but I wasn't ready to grab His hand and to make that commitment. And I didn't have the right people in my life they weren't that great of an influence, so I didn't really care that much about it. And it wasn't until I came back early for school that we talked about this active prayer life. And when we talked about it, I realized that's what I want. This active prayer life, this friendship, this relationship with God. And I talked about it with Carlos, and talking to him made me feel like I lifted so much weight off my shoulders, and I felt so relieved, and talking to him made me realize that I want a relationship with God, that I want to build my relationship with God. And peace is not just the absence of conflict. True peace requires taking what's broken and restoring it to wholeness. I am broken. We all, in some way, are broken, whether that be with our relationship with God, our spiritual life in any ways. But God has been working in my life for a long time, and He still is. I'm not completely restored, but it takes time and it takes patience, and that's fine because God's patience is a way of Him showing us that He loves us because He's willing to wait for us to be ready so that He could make us better for ourselves. And this time I'm ready to commit and put my faith in Jesus and let Him calm the storms in my life.
Amen.